as appraisers, we get paid to provide our opinion. The process can be subjective in nature. And as hard as we try to be perfect, we will make unintentional errors from time to time. So don't respond in a hostile tone. Whether you're right or wrong, always be professional. And last bullet point there, we find that the best responses are short, precise, and to the point. Now, you'll see in one example a much longer narrative version that may not be short, precise, to the point, but generally speaking, that's the best way to approach it. So in this case here, I'm going to let Tim go through this.
Any other questions before we jump right into the case studies? Nope. Okay.
Excuse me, has everyone signed the? No. All right.
We got to pass that around? Okay, very good.
Pass me the water.
Okay, what we're about to show you right now is an actual letter that Freddie Mac sent to me or actually sent to one of my clients, and then they forwarded it on to me. It wasn't quite 5 years old, but like I said, 4 years and 11 months. They'd taken back the property as an REO. There was no actual review done by an appraiser. There was a review performed by an employee of Freddie Mac. And this is kind of a way that they're streamlining stuff. In other words, they're working off a checklist. And they do talk about stuff like they use Google Maps to look at your pictures, and there's train tracks here. And this is the actual letter. It's so small, I'm not going to read the whole letter because you're going to see how we break it down in the rebuttal. But basically, they're saying that the Freddie Mac's their relief refinance program requires that the seller represent and warrant that the mortgage being refinanced was originally underwritten in compliance. The following was noted regarding the original mortgage being refinanced, and they say that the estimated market value for the subject was not properly supported. Notice they don't say if it's high or low. They just say it's not properly supported by the comparable sales provided in the original appraisal report. So based on that, they want the bank to buy it back. Then they come up with 5 bullet points, specifically what they found in the report. This is the letter. The first thing we do is we start out with a strong response. Right back, we come right out. The first thing we should say is, we strongly disagree with the comments in the letter. When I was watching the debates, the end of them last night, I kind of thought to myself, writing a response to a negative review is like being somebody debating for the presidency. People are throwing around stats. He's got his, you have yours. You're trying to prove yours are better than his, but you shouldn't waver. If you think your opinion is correct, you have to be firm and strong about it. So we state that the estimated market value for the subject was not proper, or that they say it was not properly supported. It does not appear that Freddie Mac utilized the services of a licensed Illinois appraiser. I want to get that out right away because they're asking me to do a review. I know there's not a licensed appraiser here because Freddie Mac wouldn't want to break the law in Illinois. And further, they do not provide any additional market data. They're not giving me any additional sales data. They're not giving me any market information to support their claims or their conclusions. They're just making blanket statements. Instead, their letter references variances between the subject and the comparables, which would suggest that since the comparables are different and not identical to the subject, then the opinion of value is not supported. So now here's where I start pounding my chest a little bit. So as a practicing appraiser with over 35 years of experience, I'm greatly concerned that Freddie Mac would base their conclusions on the very reason lenders utilize us, to recognize the variances between the subject and market data and adjust for them. You'll see how they're going to target us in a minute. I understand now here's what I kind of call my I feel your pain paragraph, but at the same time, I'm kind of saying shame on you for coming after the appraiser, because this is what you're doing. I mean, I understand the market's currently flooded with foreclosures as a result of the housing crisis, but blaming the appraiser and the appraisal for a borrower's inability to pay their mortgage is unwarranted. And in the case of this particular property, it's just unfounded. The letter from Freddie Mac would suggest that proper support isn't present because the appraiser does not provide enough comments. But this is a summary appraisal report. It's not a self-contained assignment. And comments were included. There was a lot of comments in the report. So we've broken down as follows. This is all in the letter. The first thing they say is the subject property is a single-family dwelling. It's in an urban area. It's over 75% built up. I say, you're right. I agree. It is in a market area that's over 75% built up, and that's what our report says. Next, they say the subject property was a 15-year-old as of the effective date property with 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, no garage, on-site parking of any kind. All 3 sales were substantially newer than the subject property. All had 2-bedroom and 2 baths, and all had 2-car garages. Basement finish for all 3 sales is superior. These sales are not representative of the subject property. My response, once again, I strongly disagree that the sales selected for the report are not representative of the subject. It is our experience that a buyer in the market would agree that these are similar and competing raised ranch style properties if the subject and the sales were listed at the same time. So in other words, I'm telling them that from my experience, if the properties were all on the market right now, the same buyer would be looking at all of them. And by the nature of that, then they are comparable to each other. All three sales included in the report were similar style homes. They're all located within about a half a mile of the subject. Since there were no recent sales that are identical to the subject property, the appraiser utilized the sales available from the closed sales inventory and adjust for any of the variances. What the reviewer does not realize is that these sales do have a third bedroom. It's located in the basement. Now, knowing this additional information would disqualify the statement that the basement finish of the sales is superior, that the basement is superior and the bedroom count of the comparables are different. Here I have a little fun. I blame the form. I say it's a function of the form to separate the above and below grade adjustments. We know that the typical buyer doesn't look at it in that regard. They don't walk through with a checklist and do all the things we do. And you get it all the time where people will call up and say, you said I have a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house. It's 5 bedrooms, 2 baths, because they don't understand the concept of separating above and below grade. So this is not an error on the appraiser's part. It's a function of the form. In other words, the subject and the comparables offer similar utilities and functionality and bedroom count. Actually, the subject and comparables' main residents are almost identical with the exception of one additional bath. Using slightly younger aged homes, and we're talking 6 to 7-year-old properties to mine, which was 15, okay? Using slightly younger aged homes due to a lack of similar aged residences would be a more acceptable alternative than using the sales of homes that were closer to the predominant age of the market area, which was reported to be 70 years old. This is an area right by Sox Park, where there was lots of teardowns starting to occur right before the housing crash. Although on-site parking is not there for the subject, there is access via an alley, and there's plenty of room on the site to construct some form of on-site parking, including a 2-car garage. So I might have a functional issue here, but it can be identified and it can be adjusted for like it was in the report. Their next statement to me, I love this one. They say the predominant value of the subject neighborhood as of the effective date was $234,000. You estimated the subject to be worth $305,000. The appraisal does not provide sufficient justification for a property valued substantially above the predominant value in the subject neighborhood, yet substantially inferior to all the comparable sales provided. I say that the subject's final opinion of value is above the stated one-unit housing predominant value. That's true. However, it does fall well within the indicated value range reported in the neighborhood section. The reviewer states that the opinion of value is substantially. And see, now I'm having fun by throwing his word back at him. He loves using this little adjective here. Above the predominant value. This is not correct. When you take the full range of the market values into consideration, the final opinion of value is actually substantially below the high end for that neighborhood, which is $535,000. This places the final opinion of value well within the center of the housing price range for this market. At the time that this appraisal was done, Freddie Mac was only requiring you to comment if the opinion of value fell outside of the high and low end. Many of us now know that we're getting certain lenders or AMCs that say if you're above or below the predominant value, tell us why. That wasn't happening 4 years ago, and I'm reminding them that it wasn't. So there is no impact on the subject's marketability because it did not appraise for the predominant value. The predominant value, okay, and now here I'm having fun again too because now I'm throwing appraisal talk back to them.
Right.
The predominant value is simply a measure of central tendency. Mean, mode, median. It's not intended to suggest every house in that market is going to sell for the predominant value or a centralized value determination. The subject is not considered to be an over-improvement for the market area. We also disagree that the comparables are substantially superior to the subject. They are superior in some areas, but they're inferior in others. Adjustments were made to reflect the variances, and none were excessive. They go on to say, the appraiser indicates on page 1 and also in the comments that the subject neighborhood is in a declining market. However, comparable sales 1, which was 12 months old, and 2, which was 9 months old, have no time adjustments. The appraiser's comment that no time adjustment was warranted for the use of these sales is inconsistent with the description on page 1 in the neighborhood market conditions section. My response? The lender may not realize exactly when homes in the subject market area began to decline. It just didn't happen overnight. It was determined that as of 12/15/2007, which is the effective date of the appraisal, the subject's general market area was starting to report declining values, oversupply of homes, but we had no market evidence to prove that values were declining 9 to 12 months earlier. This was right when the housing market started to first show signs of that we were going to go in the wrong direction. making an adjustment that would be unsupported at the beginning of the housing crisis, just for this time adjustment factor, it would be unethical on my part. At the time of the appraisal, there was still new construction in the area, and all three comparables indicate that the market was absorbing these homes well within a 6-month marketing time. So at a certain time, the housing prices started, but am I penalizing stuff a year ago with negative time adjustments before it was declining? Just like sooner or later, it's going to stop. And you're going to have to be ready to understand that it stopped at this point, and I better stop making negative time adjustments. I will be greatly interested to see if Freddie and Fannie are going to let us give positive time adjustments. Because I started in '77, and that was like taboo. What are you doing, positive time adjustments? Sale 2 sold for $275,000 on January 24, 2005. Then it resold for $319,000 on March 20th, 2007. So sales prices were still increasing for younger and newer residences in this market. However, the overall market had started to decline. We will refer you to the predominant age of homes in this area as reported on page 1, which was 70 years old. This is an established older community in the near South Chicago area that was experiencing a growing trend of older teardowns being replaced by newer homes in the past 20 years. The trend still exists this very day, it's just slowed down greatly.